investigative journalism fellowship for grant schemes. Some of our colleagues already do that, but we think we can do it even more to benefit the wider media spectrum in the country. There are lots of recommendations for the civil society, and we'll all find them in the report. I just gave you a snapshot of what we have. And ladies and gentlemen, we would like to call for conducting a survey on how journalists are paid in this country by the regulators and the different authorities. Journalists come out as the least paid professionals, and this makes them susceptible to being compromised. Also working under very severe and pathetic situations, despite the high risk that characterize their work. Then we have the journalists associations and unions. One is to encourage and support freelance journalists a lot, train journalists on risk assessment, conflict reporting, and digital security. Finally, to our development partners. We would invite the development partners, I see some of us here with us, to support capacitation of journalists, to support access to justice for the journalists, and to offer more incentives and fellowships to journalists to advance their careers in a more professional manner. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a brief summary of the report, to which all of you will have a copy. My colleague from the Uganda Human Rights Commission, certainly a copy awaits you, and everyone here before you leave. Thank you so much for the kind attention of the report. The report brings out a comprehensive overview of the status of press freedom violations and abuses in Uganda during the year 2024. It also represents data on human rights abuses targeting journalists and media practitioners in the country. In the year 2024, the Human Rights Network of Journalists Uganda documented a total of 110 incidents involving human rights violations and abuses targeting journalists, media professionals, media institutions, and the figure reflects a decline of 12 cases compared to the 122 that we reported about in 2023. However, it marks an increase of 16 cases from the 94 cases or incidents that we recorded in 2022. And when we review this in a broader context, the 2024 tally shows a notable reduction of 21 cases from the 131 reported in 2021. We are giving you a perspective or a pattern of how things have been faring in the country, and which is a significant drop of 64 cases from the peak of the 174 incidents that we recorded in 2020. These fluctuations highlight both progress and persistent challenges in ensuring the safety and rights of media practitioners in Uganda over the past 5 years. And these are the nature and number of human rights abuses and violations that were reported in 2024. The leading perpetrator of violence against journalists in 2024, the nature of the incidents were blocked or denied access to news scenes, and this contributed to a figure of 52 cases, followed by assault on journalists. Journalists were beaten to a tune of 25 cases, and then damaging their equipment contributed to 11 cases. The arrests on journalists in the line of duty contributed to 7 cases, and those that were charged in courts of law were 5. Those that were directly intimidated by different sources were 3. Those that were threatened, like threats to their lives, were 3. and those that had their footage deleted were 2. Those that had their gadgets stolen away from them permanently were 2, and this gives us a total of 110 incidents of abuses and violations in the reporting year. Down to break down these incidents, especially about blocked or denied access. The incidents involving blocked access or denied access recorded the highest number of press freedom violations, totaling to 52 cases. This marked a significant increase compared to the previous years, which saw cases of 47 in 2023, 10 in 2022, 8 in 2021, and 40 in 2020, then 44 in 2019. This one we have expanded to 6 years to have a better perspective. And then when we go to assaults, we had 25 cases of assaults against journalists which were reported and documented by HRNJ. This marked an increase of 10 cases compared to 15 that were reported in 2023. However, it represented a decline from figures that were reported between 2019 and 2022. Then we went to damaging of equipment. A total of 11 cases involving the damage of journalist equipment were reported and documented. This was a notable drop from the 15 cases that were reported in 2022. However, it represented a slight increase compared to the 8 cases that were reported in 2023 and 2022, respectively. Ladies and gentlemen, we went to the arrests, journalists being arrested in the line of duty. In contrast to the previous 3 years, where arrests ranked as the second most common violation, in 2024, arrests dropped to the 4th highest category, with only 7 cases reported. This marks a significant decline from 25 cases in 2023 and 22 in 2022. There were 26 in 2021 and 11 in 2020, while we had 14 cases of arrest in 2019. The other violations that we can talk about here included journalists that were intimidated in Guru, those were 2. Journalists that had direct threats to their lives, those were 3, like I said, among other violations, as will be detailed in the report. But also the UPDF was implicated in handing out direct intimidation to a media house in Namuwongo. Then we go down to the category of victims of violations. In 2024, a total of 84 journalists were recorded as victims of various violations and abuses. Of these, 70 were reporters who directly experienced incidents in the line of duty. This reflects a slight increase of 5 cases compared to the 65 that were reported in 2022. However, it marks a decrease of 4 from the 74 victims of 2023 and 35 from 2021. In terms of percentage of the targets, we saw that media houses were the most targeted, television stations were the most targeted media houses, to a tune of 50% of the attacks were aimed at televisions. And then radios had a percentage of 27.2%, print had a percentage of 9%, and online had a percentage of 6.3% of the attacks. Then we come to the perpetrators, who I'm very sure all of us are interested in knowing, possibly asking also the questions, what will be done to the perpetrators? In the year 2024, the key perpetrators of press freedom violations included the Uganda Police Force, as always, I must say, the UPDF, the military police, the Joint Anti-Terrorism Task Force, which is JAT, members of the community, and private guards, among others. And the Uganda Police Force remained the leading perpetrator of press freedom violations, accounting for 38 of the 110 incidents. These cases are extensively detailed in the report. You read them. Well, this figure reflects a slight decline compared to the previous 5 years of 35 in 2023, 45 in 2022, 83 in 2021, and 104 in 2020, and then 101 in 2019. The Uganda Police Force still is registered as the highest leading perpetrator of violence against journalists in the country. And these are followed by still men in uniform, the UPDF. Uganda People's Defense Forces, the People's Forces, are second in terms of violating the rights of journalists, on the other hand. And they have seen a significant decline, however, over the last 6 years. Because in 2024, we registered one case of intimidation involving a UPDF officer who was recorded as discussed in the chapters in this book. And this marked a continued downward trend from previous years. 2 in 2023, 11 in 2022, and 25 in 2021. Then we had also violations, abuses coming from with the communities and individual members, and these accounted for 21 violations and abuses against journalists, which were committed by private individuals, including bodyguards, town agents, and gangs. This marked a slight increase compared to the previous years, where we saw 18 cases in 2023, 6 cases in 2022, 6 cases in 2021, 7 in 2020, and 6 in 2019. Then here came JAT, the Joint Anti-Terrorism. This is a new category of perpetrators, which is also prone to violations of press freedom in 2024. A total of 13 cases of violations and abuses were recorded against JAT. These ones also participated in blocking or denying access to journalists to cover press conferences that were scheduled at NUP and other places. They also were seen beating some journalists. Then we had individual leaders from elsewhere who accounted for 6 violations against journalists. The details will be coming to you in the report. We also had the military police, which the report says that unlike in 2023, when 18 press freedom violations were attributed to the military police, only 2 such incidents were reported in 2024, meaning there is a tremendous improvement from 18 to 2 cases. So somehow the military is trying to behave. Then we also had unknown perpetrators. These ones had to be identified by the victims. And such cases contributed to 28 cases, which were attributed to unidentified individuals. Among them were persons described as plainclothes men representing or engaging like security officers. We could not know where they're coming from. We could not know whether they were acting for and on behalf of the forces, so it was very hard to really know who they were. We couldn't identify them. Then these violations all had gender perspectives, ladies and gentlemen. In terms of the gender, in 2024, a total of 15 female journalists were subjected to violations and abuses by various perpetrators. The violations included physical assault and denial of access to news coverage. Compared to previous years, in 2023, we registered 14 violations and 16 in 2022. And 2019, we had 10 in 2021 and 19 in 2020. So in here, we see that female journalists are not safe while in the line of duty. Something has to be done against protecting the colleagues out in the field. Then we also had physical locations for these violations. The locations where these incidents happened, the 110 violations and abuses happened in different spaces, say cities and districts. Kampala reported the highest number with 70 cases, followed by the district of Wakiso with 12 cases. Gulu and Rengo each recorded 5 cases, while Mpigi and Buyikwe registered 4 cases each. Arua and Chenjojo reported 3 cases each. Kabale, Buhweju, Mubende, and Oyam each documented a single violation against a journalist. And at the regional level, the central region saw the overwhelming majority of incidents that happened to journalists with 96 cases, the central region. And this was followed by the northern region